Hide your chickens, folks. The Hound is back in town.
But perhaps I can give you justice in the name of our king.
Hello everyone, Charlie in Westeros here, and before you ask why I'm not showing myself, it's because I'm currently traveling in England, and with so limited time to make these videos, it was just easier to record rather than film myself. So any of you who didn't want to see this ugly mug during my episode reviews have had your wish granted this time around. Video related, I'll put a few clips from my trip throughout this review, but enough of all that. Let's dig right into this episode of Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 7, entitled The Broken Man. And there certainly was quite a few broken and not so broken men this episode. So first off, I'm sure we can all agree that we all absolutely loved the return of the unbroken man that is Sandor Clegane. It was interesting that they didn't try to hide his identity like in the books, but it certainly would be difficult to do that in the medium of the television show. I did enjoy how the laid-back and happy-go-lucky Septon played by Ian McShane stood out in such stark contrast with the High Sparrow. It was fascinating to see how truly honest that Septon was, even saying that he doesn't know if there really is a seven gods, or even acknowledging that there could be other gods as well. Meanwhile, the fact that the High Sparrow has so much zeal for his own belief system absolutely makes me think that there must be more to him that we just don't know about, and I really hope that they tell us what that is by the end of this season. The scenes at King's Landing, of course, confirm the fact that Margaery Tyrell is, just as I thought, trying to play the sparrows after all. However, the fact that the High Sparrow gave his warning to Margaery about Lady Olenna's life being at stake was clearly a sign to let her know that the Tyrell grandmother should be instructed to leave the area. What the sparrows have planned, I cannot say, but I think the fact that Cersei's desperate confrontation of Olenna for help is a sheer sign that once again Cersei will be shaking things up there by the end of the season. In spite of that, you gotta give it to her, it's pretty ballsy of Cersei to want to stay in the city in spite of being surrounded by her enemies. Anyway, events in the North were pretty great this episode as well, and I absolutely loved the character of Lyanna Mormont. She quite literally gave me Season 1 Arya tease, and I thought for sure Sansa was going to make a comment about that resemblance this episode to her sister. I was rather surprised to see how easily the Mormonts were convinced of the White Walker threat, however, and that they were willing to throw in their cause with Sansa and Jon pretty much just like that. So that said, I think that the scenes here are more or less a build-up to the fact that the Starks need Littlefinger's assistance in dealing with the Boltons, and obviously the two houses will be going toe-to-toe in Episode 9, given that episode's title. And of course, I think we can all agree that that letter Sansa wrote at the end was for Littlefinger. Speaking of going toe-to-toe, I absolutely must speak on Arya's scene this episode. Now, evidently Evans and Braavos were quite shocking considering we witnessed her getting stabbed, but I think this is a clear sign that the things aren't as they seem to be. Although I have not looked at anyone else's thoughts, comments, or reviews for this episode, I am absolutely sure I am not the only one who thinks that Arya's stabbing was a setup. My first thought is that being stabbed that badly in the belly would, short of a miracle, pretty much cause her death, so get your tinfoil hats on, because this is what I would propose. So Arya made very little effort to hide this episode, so my hunch is that she knowingly tried to lure out the waif whom she expected would try to kill her. So all Arya really needed to do was maybe stuff some, freshly dead animal or some kind of fake blood pouch or something inside her coat so that she could at least pretend to be dead in order to get the faceless men off her back. At the very least, there is no way Arya can die this soon, so there must be something more at play here. Now, if Arya was indeed stabbed and narrowly avoided death, then I am willing to bet that the actors troupe of the previous episode will play a role in healing and at least saving her, and this would certainly lead me to think that the girl will be traveling with them to Westeros rather than the merchant she tried to pay off this episode. Very soon, anyway. That said, I think her whole plot this season is quite telling. When I watched this episode with some friends here in England, one of them made a very poignant remark about Arya. That is, that she can't kill without reason, as demonstrated 2 episodes ago. It was really vengeance that originally led her to joining the Faceless Men, potentially to become an efficient killer, and seemingly in order to fulfill vengeance, yet clearly the young Stark might not have the heart for such senseless killing. And I think that is a very important point. There were a few other things I skipped over discussing in this review, like the Blackfish, who is yet another not-so-broken man, despite the fact that his nephew, Edmure, is broken to the point to being marked for dead, as well as the scene in Volantis with the debatably broken Theon and his sister Yara, who apparently likes women after all. Nevertheless, I think these scenes spoke for themselves quite clearly this episode. That said, one last thing I want to say about events at Riverrun is that since Walder Frey's son Lothar so blazingly admitted to killing Catelyn Stark by slitting her throat, is a sheer sign that he is going to get his own throat slit by the end of this season. Whether it's by the hands of a Lady Stoneheart, however, is another matter. In spite of some awesome moments and some truly beautiful scenery shots, this episode wasn't the most epic of the season, but it definitely wasn't a bad one by any means whatsoever. So I'd personally give it an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, I think I'll leave things at that, but before I go, I do want to encourage you all to check out a video I did with two of my friends, Carrie and Frank from Guy and Girl Nerd Duo. A link to that is in the description below, and I dare you all to count the amount of times I nod my head in that video. Anyway, please let me know what you folks think of this episode of Game of Thrones, and of course, if you have anything you would like to add or correct with respect to my own thoughts. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.
But perhaps I can give you justice in the name of our king.